All right. So, and Craig, thanks for joining as well. Last time it was Michelle and Darby and I, so glad to have you part of the discussion too. So, about 3 weeks ago, we had well. So, what do we want to do? Just do a quick review of that. We want to know how many features were in existence in each release, how many features were default on versus default not default on in each release, and then more information on the feature flags because we want to ones that are we want to manage them over time of if it reduce the number so we don't have technical debt of ones, for example, that are default on, and also understand how many are default off and when they might be on in the future because of challenges with some features not being default on that could be and benefiting the users, knowing that there's risk of turning things on before that we're ready to turn them default on. I think that's kind of the summary of the kinds of things we want to know. And then action items that we discussed about 3 weeks ago was meeting again, which we're doing now, creating an issue to track the effort, which we haven't done yet, at least not that I remember. And then potentially after 13.3, just going to quickly read these. After 13.3, add an updated feature flag training will be offered, require all new feature flags to be in the YAML file. And then after that, communicate to all teams that we should explicitly define their feature flags in the YAML file for everything created prior to 13.3. I think that's where we landed. I don't know if we still like these action items, but what are everybody's thoughts?
Would you give me edit access, please?
Oh, sorry. I meant to give that to everybody. Yes, doing that now.
So I spoke with Camille on Friday in these action items 3 and 4. So 3, and remember this is on Friday, he said that in 2 weeks, he's going to require that all new feature flags be in the YAML file. So 2 weeks from Friday. And so that takes care of 3. And then on 4, it says communicate to all teams they should explicitly define the existing ones. I had thought, because there's an issue that he created, I had thought that we were going to need to do that. But he said that he would automatically be doing the first kind of like whatever is in there today. He'll go ahead and add automatically, and then moving forward we'll pick up. So I suppose that takes care of 4 as well. The downside being we have Camille, one person responsible for 3 and 4. So I don't know if that's a concern, but those should be taken care of.
Cool.
Do you know how this is going to be required? Like for number 3, how he's planning on doing that?
I don't know, but I believe Craig might know. I believe he was going to block with DangerBot if there was a feature flag added without the file.
Okay, that makes sense.
I do not know the details.
I was just trying to imagine the mechanism we were going to use with DangerBot. Sounds like the right way to do it.
So, Michelle, on number 3, you said 2 weeks this will be required. Does that mean the end of this milestone, or was it a magic? I saw the magic hands going there. Was it just kind of a rough ballpark?
I'm gonna check the actual message that he sent out. Okay, he says, as you probably heard, we have a new YAML-based definition for feature flags used in the code base. This makes it easier to gather important info. There's already a few people using it. Currently it's optional, but in around 2 weeks' time, it will become the only way to create a feature flag. So please try it out. So I think, we don't know.
Is that a public Slack message?
Yeah, let me link it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
It roughly aligns with the milestone, so maybe.
I'm gonna put it in the chat because, well, maybe I need to refresh the page to get it. Okay, yes. I have edit access now.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you. Other than that, the only thing I can say is I'm going to coordinate feature flag training as well soon. Early next week, I'll probably update the onboarding template and the feature flag training template and start broadcasting those.
So, oh, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I will ask now, which epic is our single source of truth? So I have this one here, the improve internal usage of feature flags, which is roughly what Camille has been driving all of his implementation off of. Is that the one we're following for this effort? Because I know there's other efforts going on about dog fooding, about which underlying technology we're going to use, and there's a lot of conversations going on, and I'm trying to focus on just this one. So is that epic the single source of truth for everything in this conversation, or should it be if it is not?
It should be, because it is not.
Okay, so let's make this our single source of truth, and then we can start identifying where there are gaps, like what was just mentioned in Slack. If we have a rollout date, we should have an issue for that, and I don't believe we do. The description for that epic is non-existent, right? It's largely the makeup of the issues underneath, and I'm happy to coordinate this if nobody else is owning it. It's something Camille and I kind of talked about earlier this week. There's kind of a product management piece that's missing, and sorry, I'm really not trying to offend anybody who's been working on this. Michelle, I know you've been doing a lot of coordination and other people are involved, but it could use some more coordination. And if there's nobody else doing it, I will volunteer. I don't see any hands shooting up, so it looks like I volunteered myself to do it. So.
I think, yeah, you're going to need to do it. I think what happened is we're all working on kind of different things, and this meeting was a way to tie all of those things together, and we haven't had that.
Yeah. Okay, and one of my goals is to be clear that this is not dog fooding. This is not feature flag as a feature. This is us cleaning up kind of the behind the scenes so that we can then support all of those future things like dog fooding and making it a feature of our product later on. This is literally just to get insight, visibility, and better control into our current use of feature flag, and have one way of doing feature flag. May not be the way we do it long term, because I know there's still discussions about technology later on, but for now, we're cleaning up and fixing what we have. Do I have the correct understanding of the goal of this epic?
Yeah, it's cleaning up what we have and being able to answer some of the, and also doing that so we can answer some of the questions above on how many we have at various states over time. Yep. Not to use the I don't know if it's new, but the features in GitLab itself that we recommend for customers that's not ready for our use yet.
Yep. So cleaning up what we have, adding some visibility. Instead of you guys listening to me type, I will write it up in if you're not already listeners on there, I'll ping you on the description for that epic to make sure it is correct. And one of the other questions I had was a rollout plan. It sounds like we have talked about a rollout plan, but it's not really written down. Maybe I'll just create an issue for it so we have a single place to go look at that. And then once we hit the MVC of this, the first rollout, which team owns it going forward? I don't think it's a memory team thing. I think from what I've seen of the other epics I looked at, it looks like the progressive delivery team might be owning it. And I don't know if there's any representatives for that team here. So I don't want to volunteer someone who's not here, but does anybody have an idea of which team would own feature flag maintenance going forward?
This was kind of a weird split, because I used to work in progressive delivery, and we would get a lot of questions about like our internal feature flag implementation, which they don't really, like that team doesn't really focus on. I think back then when we would run into these issues, it would be I think the delivery team, I want to say, that was kind of like owning, upgrading of the Flipper gem and stuff like that. But no one from that team is here either. So
okay. I can follow up and okay, find the right ownership for it.
Okay. And I mean, if they don't feel like it fits with them, it may make sense to move it to progressive delivery with, obviously coordination with that team. But if our intention is to set the stage for how we're going to like implement the GitLab product within GitLab, like that would start to tie those two things together. And I think there's been a bit of a gap there up until now.
Okay. Yep. Cool.
So to confirm, when this work is complete that we described earlier, we'll have all feature flags tracked or only new ones, newly introduced ones?
My understanding is that Camille is going to migrate the existing feature flags into YAML already. So we should have all of them. But
Nice.
I hope that, I mean, I could be wrong. I hope that I'm not wrong, but I believe that's the last that I heard.
Okay. And then that should give us this thing through. So we'll know how many we can watch, looking at the, here, let me number the questions at the top. So rather than bullets. So for question 1, we'll know how many, we can use that going forward to figure how many we have in each release, right? Because we can look at the YAML file for each release and know how many feature flags were default on versus not default on in each release. We won't know it historically, right? But we'll know going forward, and that's more important. For each feature flag in which release was it introduced, we won't know except for going forward, but I think that's okay. Like we'll just know it was at this release when we started tracking it or sometime earlier. And for ones that are not default on, we can then start talking to the teams about, if it's not default on and it's been around a while, talking about, why. Should it still exist? Is there a plan to turn it default on? And the answer might be no. There's no plan to make it default on because that'll be appropriate for some. And for others, it should. And number 5, for ones that are default on, is there a plan by the team that maintains it to remove it in the future if that's a valid use case? I mean, there might be a reason to keep a feature flag that is default on so that somebody can turn it off if they want to. But if that's not a valid use case, then we can reduce technical debt by getting rid of it. So it sounds like, I mean, there's a lot of work in 4 and 5, but at least we'll have the data in 1, 2, and 3. And it's not cut and dry on the decision at all. It has to be the team that that created the feature flag or maintains it, making a educated decision based on it. It's not cut and dry like, oh, it's default on, so and it's been there for 6 months, get rid of it. That would not be that may not be a valid decision. So does that all resonate? Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah,
Makes
that's
sense.
my understanding too.
Mm-hmm.
I think to me, it seems like 4 and 5 would be a handoff issue to whichever team owns it later on, like not something we would ask Camille and whoever else he's pairing with right now to work on those implementation details. 3, that's probably something they'll have to figure out, right? It's not going to be in the YAML file. They'll just have to look back at the history, maybe. I'm not sure how that would be extrapolated.
So I just looked up Camille's documentation on this. So for 4 and 5, when you create the feature flag, there is a field he's added for you to go create the rollout issue, which is the issue where we default it on and remove it.
All right.
He doesn't have those listed as required, so it's possible that the team doesn't fill it out. But with that data, we should be able to say, is there a plan to remove it? Check and see if there's an issue. If there is, yes, there's a plan to remove it. Same thing with 4, I would think.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Sounds great. So I think we should go sync again just at some point in the future, just to check where we are versus where we expected to be and see how things are going, et cetera. Maybe a month from now?
If we're going to roll out in a couple weeks, maybe shortly thereafter, so maybe 3 weeks from now, make
Okay.
sure everything is either close to on time, or we know why it didn't go out if it doesn't go out. So
Okay. Oh, yep. 3 weeks sounds good. And you mentioned there are a couple teams not represented. I know we're as async as we can be. So I heard mention of creating if issues to track various things. That's definitely the way to go versus a Google Doc. But when we go sync again, in addition to the 4 of us, who else should be invited?
I think that's TBD, right? If we find that it's either delivery or progressive delivery, then one of those teams.
One of those delivery teams.
Yes.
So,
So start delivery. Someone will show up.
Yeah. So Craig, are you going to handle the communications of the change, like making sure teams are aware of that? Is that on your radar? That would be number 4 from the list on the bottom there, which I think was just telling people that this new check is going to be in place.
Number 4, this one I'm highlighting here.
This one down here on the bottom of the page. From the August meeting action items.
I can take this because when Camille said that he was going to require that these get defined, I said I would really love it if we could roll out that feature flag training alongside it so that people know how to use it. And I already have to communicate that anyway. So I'll just communicate them both at the same time.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we had that tracked. And then Craig, you were going to sync up with the delivery or progressive delivery teams, or do you want to hand with that?
Either way, it's fine.
Okay.
No, that's non-definitive. I will create an issue for that to make sure we find the handoff team. I will copy you on it, and then I will ping the other managers for those teams and let them know that this is a discussion point. We need to find a long-term owner for this. And then if we need to have a synchronous conversation, we'll go from there. We'll start async with an issue for now.
Okay, perfect. Then I can help out from there, however you need. So, okay, cool. Thanks.
So I'll schedule next in 3 weeks based on our schedules, and of course, add anyone and everyone you think might be interested. And I'll also post the Google Doc, the recording, Eng managers, and I'll tag Camille and Kenny since he seems interested in the related subject. And also I'll make a note of it in engineering week in review. So that are interested can find out about it. Anything else we should discuss today? Good stuff. Cheers.